What's up, guys? Thanks for joining me here on my live cast. Sorry about that earlier. We had some technical difficulties, had to restart, reboot, and all that jazz. Anyways, we are back. So apologies to CJ that was here earlier. Hope you come back. If not, I more than understand. We are looking at John Varvatos or Varvatos's JN. I don't know if X means loves Nick Jonas. Cross Nick Jonas, JV, Love, and NJ. I don't know what the X is for, honestly. I'm just kind of kidding around. So this is kind of like a slightly metallic. Um, it's got this little sort of metallic, deep cherry, crimson. I don't know. Yeah, you can kind of see it from that angle. And then this part's more or less black or very, very dark gray at any rate. Anyways, that's the box. It is the 4.2 fluid ounce, 125 mils. Not looking at the box. Hey. There's Mitch. I mean Mike. Excuse me. Hi, Mike. We are looking at this guy today. This is the JVNJ Crimson edition of the Nick Jonas, John Varvatos. We're going to say it. I do like the bottle color. It's got this sort of rich metallic crimson. I don't know how much color the camera can convey. It's much more three-dimensional and richer looking in real life, I can assure you, but whatever. It's a John Varvatos at the end of the day. It's not like Nick Jonas designed this. He just I don't know what input Nick had or didn't have, but at the end of the day, it's Nick it's John and his noses, and we'll get into the noses in a second. Standard bottle, very nice heavy cap, little leather or pleather. I don't know if that's real leather or not. Sure does look real, and this nice metal, almost like a dog tag. I don't know what the. Yeah, it is successful marketing, but having said that, I think that Fracom and the world at large has spoken in the sense that the original Nick Jonas sent from John Varvatos or Varvatos was not exactly an interstellar galactic hit. It was received fairly lukewarmly. Probably a really decent frag for guys in their early to mid 20s. I don't think it was taken a whole lot more seriously than that. I could be wrong. This one, however, I think deserves to be taken quite a bit more seriously for a couple of reasons. One, it's quite a bit more daring than the original John Varvatos, which, let's be frank, was kind of a mashup between Invictus and Gentleman Givenchy, to more or less of an extent. And it was sadly not as good as either of those offerings, in my humble opinion, nor in the opinion of most of Fracom. But I'm not saying it's a terrible fragrance. I just don't think it's that interesting. This one here actually is quite good and fairly interesting. I think there's something to be said for that. So let's get into the notes, and we'll talk about the nose. There is some oddity about the nose. What I mean by that is that Rodrigo Flores Rue has been the in-house perfumer of John Varvatos for forever, basically, since I think the line debuted. And all of a sudden, this flanker is not designed by him. It's designed by another nose from the U.S. By the name of Carlos Viñal. Now, Viñal is a Cuban-American, originally resident, grew up, I believe, in Manhattan, and went and trained extensively in Europe and got various jobs, starting, I believe, in chemically, like professional flavorings of food stuffs, and then moved into perfumery after that. And he's done some interesting stuff. Doesn't have a huge resume compared to bigger noses in industry, but he does have a pretty nice little catalog under his belt. You can look up his offerings online if you want. I don't want to spend too much time on that. But anyways, these are the notes, which pretty much are the same between base notes and Fragrantica, but I'm going to use the base notes here for starters. Now, this was my scent of the day, guys. So it starts with apple, cedar leaf, Calabrian bergamot, carbonated coffee, and Cuban rum in the top. You're going to get suede, lavender, amber, saffron in the heart. And finally, in the base, you're going to get Madagascar or Madagascan vetiver, labdanum, salted musk, and finally patchouli. Now, this has a lot of that new, I forget the exact name. It's something like Ambrox Super, I want to say, or Ambron Super, something like that. Let me see if the other website lists that. At least I'm pretty sure it has. Does this not have? Am I looking at the wrong thing? Let me check one more time. Maybe not, but oh yeah. It's I know what it is. It's the synthetic amber. Yeah, it's got this funny little name. I forget the exact name. It's something like Ambrox 220 or Super, something like that. But the idea basically is just that it's a really good synthetic form of amber. This does have coffee with the CO2 extraction. I think that's very unique. There aren't a lot of perfumes anywhere near this price point that are actually using the CO2 extraction technique for coffee. That's pretty wild. Cedar leaf. So I don't know if that's not as cedary as real cedar wood. I'm going to assume not if it's a real leaf. I'll have to look into that down the road. But suffice it to say, it does have a little hint of cedar, but it's not as sharp or pungent as actual cedar wood. Now, killer note up front, guys, is the apple. It's almost like a candied Jolly Rancher cinnamon apple. I don't care what they say. To me, cinnamon is in this for sure. It's not listed anywhere online in the notes, but to me, I get cinnamon. I mean, call me a liar or whatever. Or maybe it's the strange interplay between the saffron, the cedar leaf, the amber and the incense and the patchouli mixing with that rum and bergamot, and apple especially. But to me, I smell a pretty healthy dose of cinnamon. Regardless, this has a nice suede-like accord. The lavender, the bergamot's quite nice up front. This has a nice, slightly earthy, semi-pungent patchouli. It's not that real clean, clinical patchouli into the dry down. The labdanum, yeah, it's their typical synthetic, as far as I can tell. I apologize if it's real, but I would call it synthetic for now, or at least mostly synthetic. There is a little bit of incense in here, which strangely, although it's listed in the base, I get more of that up top and into the mids rather than the base. Salted musk. I guess I don't really get a whole lot of salt in this concoction, but also we'll agree that it's there for now. Vetiver, I do get the vetiver, but you have to keep in mind, guys, it's light to medium light, and it's so well blended with everything else that you're really not going to get a clear-cut standout vetiver. Maybe in the deep dry down a little bit more of that comes out. Now, I will also say that this was my scent of the day. And we're going to get into the good, the bad, and the ugly here in a sec. But let me firstly say that price point, this is going right now for fairly ridiculously cheap. I got the 125 mils bottle online for $43 delivered to the door. So if that's too much scratch for you to dole out on an interesting scent in a really big bottle, very, very good looking bottle, I might add. I mean, I don't know what price point you're buying at. $20 bottles, $10 bottles, I have no idea. But now, before I get into it, a word on the coffee and the apple. The coffee, I just don't really get from this fragrance. I mean, maybe I'll get more of that down the road in multiple wearings, but maybe I got like 3%, 4%, 5% absolute tops. I just never thought, wow, smell that coffee accord. I think that I think the other elements in here are just simply overpowering. You get that cedary thing going on with the saffron and the leather, the suede, that strong, spicy, sweet apple accord with that Cuban rum. It does have a slight boozy, rummy accord up top through the mid. And there's a lot of stuff going on here. Like I said, there's the patchouli, the labdanum, the incense, the vetiver, the musk. I think, unfortunately, if you're a hardcore coffee guy or gal or coffee lover and you're looking for this to be your fix coffee wise, not going to happen. Just buyer beware. Don't buy this for the coffee. It's barely there. I'm sure some other noses or people that use this are going to get more coffee than I did or do, and that's fine. But I'm just telling you, word of the wise, I got very, very little coffee in here. I think it's just blended almost too well with the amber, the suede, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. The apple, um, yeah, the smell up front is whimsical, fairly adolescent, but it's done well. It's a little bit juvenile and slightly off-putting if you're older like myself, or even much older than myself, or even slightly younger than myself, but you have a more mature set about you, a more mature approach to the sense that you wear. You may find this a little bit cookies and milk, or a candied apple, almost childish. But let me be very clear. That slightly cloying initial candied apple cinnamon thing, it begins dying down enough, and then it dies down quite a bit more, and it becomes a lot more serious. You'd be surprised how much more mature this scent gets over the course of the first hour to hour and a half. It becomes a legitimately slightly mysterious, very inviting, very sexy, sensual, sort of semi-typical John Varvatos modern scent. I mean, that DNA is very, very apparent, right? It's very, very apparent that you're wearing John Varvatos or Varvatos, however you want to say it. And it creates this really unique, sexy, mysterious, yet slightly youthful blend that I think is quite intriguing, actually. And I was glad to see that initial, slightly juvenile, slightly childish take on a scent just toned down almost immediately. It was like the volume knob was just turning down over the first, I would say, 15 to 30 minutes. And by the 40th minute, 45-minute mark, it was really, really becoming a mostly sophisticated, sexy, intriguing, and slightly different scent. I do think this scent will pop a lot more in the fall and winter. I don't think this is a great banger for summers or springs, unless you live somewhere that's just inordinately cool during those seasons. But I certainly don't. Now, before I conclude the evening session, I do want to also simply say that longevity, and this is a shout out to you, Mark Robes08. We're friends online. Mark's always been, if nothing else, exceedingly blunt, almost to the point of a fault, or a sin. He's almost too honest for his own good. So am I. We don't pull punches. We tell it like it is. I don't make a one red cent off anything of what I say on a frag. And by the way, all my fragrances I have paid for. I don't have one, except maybe for tiny, tiny, tiny samples. But if you see me with the bottle, I bought it. If it was a gift, I'll let you guys know. Trust me. Either way, I'm under no coercion to mince the truth. You know what I mean? I give it to you straight. So Mark has long proclaimed from Canada that in general, with some exception, Varvatos scents have absolutely piss poor performance and longevity. Those are his words, paraphrased, not mine. Now, for myself, I humbly submit, to a limited extent, or actually to a pretty good fair extent, I more or less agree with Mark. just to the extent that a lot of his fragrances in the Varvatos line, they don't push real hard, and they tend to die on skin, I'd say, in the first 3 to 5 hours. And I mean, after that, you're just begging to smell something this close, right? That's not true of all of his scents. I would say John Varvatos, I'm going to say it, has probably about 6 to 8 scents in his catalog that have decent longevity and projection, or at least decent longevity. Maybe not the projection so much. And I would say he has about 3 that have actually good performance and truly good longevity. Not great. I didn't say great. I said, but fine. You know what I mean? Like good. Nothing to complain about. That having been said, this slightly falls into the weaker camp. It's not at all terrible. It doesn't have great projection. I would say it has about semi-decent to decent projection. And I would say it has adequate, but just barely adequate longevity. What do I mean by that? I mean that it gave me a legitimate 5 to 6 hours of longevity. That's about it. And I went really heavy. This was my scent of the day. It was my work scent. I'm not going to lie. I gave myself probably about 20 spritzes of this stuff, mostly on skin, some on clothing. Now, like I said, I did get a legitimate 6 hours out of it. I didn't get 7. I'm not going to mince words and lie. So whether that's a deal breaker for you guys out there, I don't know. You'll have to make the decision yourself. I'm getting more like Carlos from BFL, Brooklyn Fragrance Lover. Shout out Carlos if you're watching, or if you watch this later. He's a great guy, by the way. Carlos has gotten to the point in his journey where if he really likes or enjoys a fragrance, or especially loves a fragrance, he personally doesn't need it to go much past 4 hours, because he can either reapply or just move on to an entirely different scent. There's another guy that does, I think it's called, what's it called? Fine Scents, or a gentleman's, not a gentleman's journey. That's Chad. I'll think of it later. At any rate, I'm getting a little bit askew. The point is, we all have different barometers for where we think that a fragrance should or should not go past or to, in terms of, are we going to dole out, $40, $50, $60, $80, $100? I do agree that most of us, if we're dropping a legitimate $100, it should probably last a minimum of 7 to 8 hours, just as a general rule. And I feel like most fragrances should anyway. Having said that, I feel like once you get down to around the $40 mark, I don't know. I'm not so sure anymore, because that's just so freaking cheap compared to department store fragrances. I would still like it. Don't get me wrong. I don't like that a fragrance only lasts 4 to 5 hours on skin, but can I tolerate it? Can I deal with it more at the $40 to $60 mark if I really think the scent is delicious or sexy or intriguing, or I just like it a whole heck of a lot? I think that's easier to tolerate. I'm not at all giving a pass to manufacturers, houses, producers to say, "Oh, go ahead and put the cheap stuff in there. We don't care, as long as it smells good." I'm not saying that at all. I mean, we've all been there where you've been burned on a fragrance where you paid whatever you paid, maybe buku, and it lasted 2 to 3 hours literally, and then nothing, just zero, zilch, nada, dead on skin. And that's really deeply frustrating. And I think it's less than honest. It's less than it's just dishonorable conduct, honestly, on the part of the house, the fabricator, whoever made that stuff. It's just, they owe us more than that. They should do better. They need to try harder and do better. But let me field some questions and comments. Before I get into that, let me just end by saying, I think this is a reasonably intriguing, reasonably sexy, sophisticated scent that luckily the adolescent phase dies down in the first 20 to 40 minutes, and then it becomes quite mature, or mature enough, while still remaining that slightly playful, sexy um, attitude, and smells really good. I'm not gonna lie. And as it dies down, it still smells really good on skin. I do have, again, two or three very mild or to modest complaints. I do wish projection was quite a bit better. I wish longevity was a little bit better, a bit better, not a whole lot better. And I do wish the dry down in the mids and even the development phase was a little more robust, a little stronger, a little more. If they just amped it up, if they'd amped this thing up and really, really improved sillage and projection and longevity, I would literally tell you this is probably one of the greatest design frags in the history of perfumery, and especially in the history of the house of John Varvatos or Varvatos. But they didn't do that, so I can't quite say that. What I can say is this is a really very decent to pretty good fragrance. As long as you know what you're getting into, as long as you know what to expect, and if you don't mind parting with about $40 to $50 US or whatever your currency is, you do the algorithmic transfer or whatever. And if this idea intrigues you, this concept, if you think this kind of will jibe with your personality, I say pull the trigger. You wait too long, you're going to get burned, and these could go out of existence, and then some idiot is going to be selling this online for like $500 or something because you waited too long. Buyer beware. I'm going to end on that note, but I'll be glad to field any comments or questions before we wrap for the night. Let me go ahead and take some. Sorry to get so close, but these are really tiny and my monitor's gigantic. Harry Iglesias, good to see you. Hola, Harry. Good to see you, man. ¿Qué tal? Greetings from Panama, hermano. Yes, sir. Balsamic. It's a little balsamic-y, not overly so. I wouldn't say too much so. Just more of that ambroxan effect in there. I'm not saying the whole thing smells like ambroxan, but it definitely has that ambery ambroxan touch. Maybe a little hedione, I can't tell. Unfortunately, there's no tobacco in here to my nose, and it's not on the official listings either. Yeah, unfortunately, yeah, that's nothing like Ua John or Woa John, however you say it. Yeah, not even the same stratosphere on any level. let's just not make those connections. Yeah, I don't have the aquatic straw basket. Yeah, Mike is saying that he only had the straw basket weave aquatic, and it did nothing for him. Well, I haven't tested that one yet. I've heard a lot of mixed reviews. I'll get to that hopefully down the road. I definitely do not own it. Harry says that the white bottle has much hype. Yeah, I've heard the same stuff. I'm not gonna lie, I love great projection and great sillage frags as well. But sometimes I'll make exceptions if I really like the fragrance or it's really cheap. Yeah, Harry talks about Mark saying, one on the chest and one on the neck. I'm not gonna lie, guys. I've never gone that, except for my truly atomic nuclear fragrances, which I only have about maybe 5 or 6. Those are the only fragrances I could ever get away with only doing between 1 and 3 actual sprays and be totally set for the evening. That's it. If I try that with any of my other fragrances, it would just not perform hardly at all. And if it did, it'd be dead in 2 or 3 hours anyway. So I can't do it. I'm not gonna lie. My skin's too oily. Roja says spray 4 to 6 times. I like Tom Ford. He says spray as much as you bleeping want. I absolutely agree. I go to town. Anyone that's watched my channel knows I go to town. I'm an oversprayer and proud of it. Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm. Yeah, Mike says he walked out last night. You can read it if you want, with the bunch of fragrance Dubois samples. That is not Dubois, FYI, guys. I got straightened out on that online. I read it as French because I read fluent French. That is not the pronunciation that he was given. He said it really is Dubois. I don't know. That's what he said. He's a big time fellow reviewer. Says he got it straight from um, the main nose of that house. I'm gonna go with him for now because he seemed very very convinced that it's Dubois and not Dubois. But I haven't personally confirmed that with the nose of that house. But he says he did. I'm gonna roll with him for now. We'll see down the road. I thought that was kind of funny. Mm-mm-mm. Mike says the best purchase all year was Russian Adam Siberian Musk 2. Very cool. Well, I'm not really seeing any more new or different comments or questions. And I actually do have some other plans for the evening, so I've got to kind of cut her short. Anyways, guys, that's going to do it. I hope you at least consider giving this a try. It's a really tasty price point right now. I do not own the original Nick Jonas, of which this is sort of considered a late blooming flanker that's easily outselling or at least out hyping the original. So make of that what you will. At the end of the day, this is still a John Varvatos or Varvatos fragrance. Not everyone's cup of tea, I'll admit. Certainly not every niche lover's favorite fragrance house on any stretch of the imagination. But let's give John some due respect. He has made a lot of impact on FragCom, the fragrance community, over many years. He does have some really interesting scents, of which I personally think that Dark Rebel is, for me, this is one of the greatest tobacco-based fragrances on earth, bar none, no apologies needed. Yes, it's designer. Yes, it's slightly from a lower brow, cheaper, non-niche. It's not, upper tier designer like $150 stuff. I get it. You can get this now at online discounters for between $50 and $80 a bottle, maybe less than that if you shop around. But to me, oh my God, this stuff is phenomenal. This to me is one of the greatest Varvatos scents on earth, period. So he really hit a home run for me, and that was Rodriguez Flores Rue was the creator and the nose on that. Having said that, I got Artisan Black in I believe 2 days ago, and you'll have to wait till my next review to hear what I think about this. Not great. Let's just leave it at that for now. Not great, but you want the full skin, you have to wait till the next episode or so. Anyways, guys, that's gonna do it. Thanks for joining me here on the live cast. Apologies to earlier. We had some technical difficulties. I do apologize to CJ, who was trying to make my earlier live cast, ran into some technical difficulties. It happens, bro. Sorry. Peace, CJ. Hope you get this later and watch it at your leisure. And thank you again to my other guests here from Panama and Los Angeles, respectively. Love you guys. Thanks for helping to grow this channel. And to other watchers out there that have not commented, if you like my channel, like what I'm covering, please subscribe and click that little campana. That means bell, and in Spanish, and I think it's almost identical in Italian. So we'll see down the road of life. Spray often, spray well. Live life on your terms, baby, and not someone else's. It's either too long or too short. And hopefully we'll be looking at some other interesting fragrances down the road. Love you guys. Peace.